Okay, guys. Let's post. You can't see this, but I'm going to post live now. Technically, I'm not live yet, even though I am. So I can sit and talk to myself. And all right. Okay, so today we're going to be Blender centric today. All right, what we got here? So we've got this scene where, actually I should open Tahoma so I can reference the storyboard. Don't ask me why. I am super preferring being in Blender land instead of Tahoma. I don't even know why. It's weird. It's a bit of a, it's just a feeling. So that, this all actually came out okay. So the basically what's going on is, number one, I'm going to go ahead and break this up into individual scenes instead of running a sequence, which is almost always turns out to be a bad idea, but I've done it a million times. And I just kind of feel like going back over here. And I like this pose better. You know, I kind of went from a pencil test where Mel's kind of swinging his head around and looking around, and then I did the plastic tool. So this is all fine. But I don't know. It's just not quite clicking for me. So I decided, let's just redraw it in Blender, keep this scene by itself, and go from there. Right? So that's what we have. So anyway, if anybody's watching today, do me a favor and, you know, identify yourself. Let me know who's here. So I've got me a afternoon brewski, and I am going to probably work for about an hour on this. Okay, so as you can see from the previous shots, yeah, this sequence was a bit of a bear because I combined all these, everything up until it quits playing was all in a single scene. And as I said, that usually is something I tend to pay for. And yet I find myself, the reason is it's so easy to do a storyboard or an animatic that's kind of long. And you're just having the fun of developing the story, right? But then you got to do ink and paint and turn it into something you can actually put in the show. So anywho, so let me see here. There's a lot of keyframes in the sketch. So I'm going to turn the lines off, crank the sketch up, and just look at what I did here. Yeah, the reason I like this, okay, so one of the things we're going to have to do is introduce the, you know, the background like we have here. You know, we need to have the background drifting along behind him. So we'll probably use just the exact same picture. One thing that'll be interesting to try, though, as I'm thinking out loud here about it, is perhaps taking, let's just try it right now, actually. I'm gonna see what happens. Like, if I put the background behind him, okay, then we got a couple options. We could animate it by just moving it backwards on what for me is the y-axis. For most people it would be the z-axis. I have Blender set up so that this is x and this is actually z. I won't get into why I do it that way, but so I would be moving the background backwards on the y-axis. But what if we applied the noise modifier? I'm just going to see how this works. Okay, and let's put in a lot of distortion. So what I'm wondering now is if you use this very, 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 very broadly. I've never done this before, so I don't know. Let's see what happens when you move the noise scale up. I want maximum scale, but I don't know what the setting is. It wouldn't be strength. I don't know if there's a setting. If anybody's out there and is watching and knows, let me know. What would be the setting if you wanted to apply the noise so broadly to the character, that the effect you get is just the whole body as a unit sort of drifting up and moving around, as opposed to the wiggling of the lines like you see with the noise modifier, which of course is a very useful effect too. But I'm just wondering, can the noise modifier be used in that way, where the effect is so broad? Well, I guess for sure the positioning would have to be really high. You do want that range of movement. And I don't want to be affecting, you know, the thickness of the lines or anything like that. So I'm just wondering, how do we spread? What if... I'm not sure the answer on this one. Anybody out there know? How do we make it so that the effect of the noise modifier is super, super broad, so you really don't see it in the individual lines, you just see it in the whole character moving? If anybody knows that. Now, what we could do, there's another way. Okay, let me just think this through. This is fun, so let's try it. The thought here would be this. Well, what we really want to do is apply noise or whatever to something that affects the whole character. So probably the way I would do that then is, let's put in an empty. All right, so we'll go to object mode, and let's just stick an empty in the scene. Okay, so plop in an empty, and my empty is now here. And then what I would do is take the grease pencil. You could use the whole grease pencil object, obviously, but I'm just going to do it on this particular layer. And what we would be doing is we would do a relation to the empty. Now, what I'm curious about is whether it's going to move it right away. It doesn't look like it is, so let me just see. I want to turn auto keyframing off, by the way. Okay, so the idea here would be grab this. Okay, so you can see if I scale it up, it scales up Mel as a complete unit, right? So then the question would be, well, can we apply the noise modifier to this so that his whole body just over time just kind of drifts around? So this is kind of about the idea of creatively thinking a problem through, and it creates, if it works, then I have a procedural solution, because I can then parent the other layers or whatever I want to the empty that's already tooled up to deliver this effect. So what we would want then is a modifier. Can we do a modifier? Can you do a noise modifier on the... I mean, you can introduce noise in the graph editor. You could certainly introduce noise destructively to the motion. So again, looks like we've got a couple of people watching. If you don't mind, friends, say hello. Okay, so we've got a force field. Do we have the ability to just do a standard noise modifier on the motion of the empty? Maybe we don't. That would be kind of surprising, but... Well, the only place I would see it would be, well, we don't need a constraint. A rigid body constraint? No. I'm not sure what you do. I'm at a loss. Okay, well, no big deal. Let's just go ahead and retreat from that whole idea. We can always just take the whole unit and manually put in a little bit of noise, and that would take 1 minute to do. I was just curious if you could do it with the noise modifier. So, for the moment, okay, what the heck just happened? That's very interesting. Well, oh, yeah, okay. And Blender just blew up. That's funny. Didn't see that coming, friends. Okay, so I guess now we're rebooted back to where we were when we started, which is fine. Okay, so the that we're going to see. Just see. He kind of does a little bounce. And again, what I like about this is it's really deadpan. Obviously, so the only thing we need to do is ink him one time, introduce a little bit of the bump if we're gonna, which is that right there. Animate the eyes. And then the lip sync obviously would be on a separate layer. So again, I ask you guys again, who's watching? Who's here? Okay, so having done that, well, if we go back to... Okay, now this is an interesting bit of a conundrum. Back when I was doing more of the shots in Blender, I set up vertex color palettes for my characters and then later decided that wasn't the greatest idea. And I think I've kind of made a mistake here because I don't have the set of materials that I had created and intended to use again and again later. So probably let's do this. I just have to get my bearings here and remember what I did and when I did it. So with that in mind, I'm going to go back to it's not going to be in the recent files, so I'm going to go, let's pull up the most recent shots that we did in Blender and see if we can maybe use appending to, let's look at this one. First of all, let's just look at it and see what we've got here. Okay, well that doesn't, oh, that's the render result. Okay. Yeah, so we got all these materials, but that's not what I was talking about. That is not it. So for those who find it really boring to watch somebody sit and try to figure out how to move forward, I apologize, but that is where we're at. Maybe it's this one. 2.93 blend. Okay, this was the storyboard, and of course we had all kinds of color back here, right? So that would suggest, yep, this is it. This is what we want. Okay, so now we have a bit of a problem. What is the problem? The problem would be that I believe that the palette is inexorably tied to the grease pencil object / layers, which means we don't have a great way to pull this in, but let's try anyway. We can pull in the grease pencil and then see what we can do as far as reconfiguring some, I think I know what to do. Okay, so this is, so for those that are kind of newbies to Blender, admittedly I'm using an old version, but most of this has worked the same way in versions of Blender going back 20 years, so not a big deal. So here's what I'm thinking. Let's bring, if we can bring the set of materials as an object into the other Blender scene, cool, let's do it. I don't think we can. What we can do is bring in the grease pencil object. So this entire scene would be duplicated in my other scene. But I would then have access to the palette and whatnot. Okay. So if that doesn't make sense, it'll make sense in a minute. What we're going to do is we're going to append the grease pencil object from 3-93. We're going to append that. So let's double click this, and then we see it's not under grease pencil, by the way. I mean, we could append that. I don't think that's right, though. Let me see. There's two ways to do this. This is the grease pencil object, whereas this, what the hell is this? I'm not sure. Let's just add it. Okay, basic GP and stroke. Okay, so this is the one I just brought in, and indeed everything we wanted is here. Problem is, these layers, or I should say these materials, are all tied to a different grease pencil object. So again, if anybody out there knows, let me know. But my thinking here is, well, is it possible to just take the layers associated with this grease pencil object and either add them to the other grease pencil object and then delete the ones we don't need? That would actually solve the problem. Can we do that? Well, like I said, if anybody has a clue, let me know. Okay, let me think about this for a second. Yes, I know the answer. I just figured out the answer. See, this is why I say this is really about just creative problem solving. So I'm going to keep hitting undo because I want to get rid of this. Okay, so now here's what we're going to do. This is the, if there's a brilliant part, here's the brilliant part. What we have here is a grease pencil object for which we are going to add an extra layer. I kid you not. We are going to add an extra layer, and then what we're going to do is we're going to start deleting every other layer. Okay? Now what we have is a grease pencil object with all of the materials, but no drawing data. If we killed that keyframe, we have a truly empty scene. So what I'm going to do is save this to the RAM drive. Okay? So now we've got a different version of this here. Okay, so cool. That gets us started. So now what we would want to do is append from the RAM drive. And I'm really not clear on if we pull in this object, we get this. Okay, and then this is the specific grease pencil object, which has the same named layers. How the heck do I merge them? Golly, you'd think there'd be a way. Blender's usually pretty smart on this kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm going to go back. I'm going to hit undo again. My thinking here is that the grease pencil object that I appended is closer to what I want to bring in than bringing in a whole nother object. So instead of bringing in the object, I'm going to bring in the grease pencil item. Okay, so now it's in there, and we now have nothing at all in this layer, but we have access to all of the materials we want. So that's really cool. Okay. So now the question is, and by the way, again, I'm going to keep asking, is there anybody that's watching that knows the answer here? How do we get, maybe we don't need to. Let me see. I'm going to start deleting these materials. I guess we'll keep the skin one in there just for fun, but let's go ahead and save our work. Okay, so now I know the answer. Boy, this is clunky to have to do it this way. So I'm sure that what we could do is we could create a new slot and a new material that's going to be based on, that's not what I meant to do. Let me start over. A new material that is based on, you see? Okay, so in this Blender scene, we have access to all of these materials, and we can add them to this grease pencil object. What I really want to do, though, actually, is I want to take, okay, in a perfect world, what I would do is grab all of these materials and merge them to the other grease pencil object. And you could, somebody could write a plugin that would do that, because what it would do is it would analytically look at every material that's in grease pencil object 1, and then just copy the materials with Python over to grease pencil object 2. That would be effective. Can it really sort of do that internally? So I don't know. So the other idea here would be, well, instead of importing 50,000 materials into this grease pencil object, why not just copy this grease pencil layer into this grease pencil object and then just delete this one? That would make more sense. The only thing that's at risk there would be that the materials in this object wouldn't match up. But the truth is they probably will, because the first 4 materials have the same names. Right? Boo, 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 boo. We got these, and we got these. It's all the same materials. And Blender's always, over the years, you know, we're going back to 1999 here. Blender's always been really good at mapping things correctly based on their names. It's like the most low-tech, brain-dead way to do it, but it freaking works. So, can I copy 2, one at a time, obviously, grease pencil layers into a different grease pencil object? Anybody know? Nobody's talking today. Why do I have concurrent viewers, but yet nobody's talking? I'm starting to wonder if I've got bots watching me. That's crazy stuff. So, again, whoever is watching, forgive me for having to sit here and think about it, but you know, meanwhile, you could go Google it if you want and let me know the answer. I'm going to go to duck.ai. And I'm saying in Blender 2.93, I'm using, by the way, the large language model I'm using is Mistral. This particular platform gives you the ability to use GPT-4 Mini, Llama, Claude, O3, or Mistral. I like Mistral, so whatever. So what I'm asking here is in Blender 2.93, I have a grease pencil layer I wish to copy into another grease pencil object. Is this possible, and how? Let's find out. Yes, it is possible. Okay. In the 3D viewport, select the grease pencil object that contains the layer you want to copy. So I need to select this. I'm sorry, I just did the opposite of what I meant. This is the grease pencil object that contains the layers, actually, since there's 2 of them, that I want to copy. Okay, that's step 1. Okay, switch to grease pencil mode. Make sure you're in grease pencil mode by selecting the grease pencil tool from the toolbar or pressing Shift-I to toggle into grease pencil mode. I don't know that I've ever used Shift-I. Oh, okay. Unfortunately, friends, my keyframes, or I'm sorry, my hotkeys might be a little bit different because I just discovered here in real time, in front of the world, I just discovered that hitting Shift-I inserts a blank keyframe, which is actually super useful. Didn't know I could do that. Okay, so let's keep going. Select the layer in the Grease Pencil Properties panel. Select the layer you want to copy, which would be the sketch layer, so I've already done that. With the layer selected, right-click on it. Oh! Could it possibly be that easy? Copy, okay. All of these are grayed out, so that means I am in the wrong mode. I probably need to be in, honestly, object mode. Nope, that doesn't do it. The answer's right there in front of me, but I can't seem to grab it. Okay. Because there really isn't a quote-unquote grease pencil mode. So the instructions are not quite accurate. But that's common with these large language models. They kind of get the concept right, and they sort of give you the right answer, but you have to understand that what they're trained on is obviously the internet, meaning that the information they're citing here is just a reflection of the information that's been disseminated by humans over whatever period of time. So it doesn't look like you can copy. Wait, copy the property from this object to the select. Okay, what if I go, first of all, let me grab this. Okay, if I grab that second, that doesn't work. So let me grab this and then hit Control and grab this, and it doesn't light it up. So again, I still say, if we got a few people watching, does anybody know how do I copy this? Here we go. Copy the layer. Oh, there it is, guys. Boom. And then lines. Copy. There. Okay. Now all I have to do is just translate it. So this now, if we turn this off, we can see that everything's still there. So this entire object can be deleted. Boom. Gone forever. Okay. Now if we go to this, we've got this dud layer that I put in. We don't have the shadow layer, but that's okay. We don't care about that. Here's what we care about. Look at this. Now we've got all the materials for all of our characters. Awesome. Dude! That's what we wanted to do. Well, that's the thing with Blender. And by the way, I'm going to, again, turn off auto keyframing, because what I want to do is grab this object, make sure we're in object mode, and just put it where I want it. And by the way, it feels like it's maybe scaled a bit, just in the interest of good composition. It should probably be something like this. So we'll scale this up a bit more so that the edges of the boat are running off screen, and then pretty much just position it as best we can. So that should not have created a keyframe. Now if I go to frame 2, is it going to jump back to where it was? No. So that's good. Okay, so we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. That's pretty awesome. So indeed, it turns out there is definitely a way to copy a layer from one grease pencil object to another. So now that we've done that, we can go into our object, and all we need to do is add 2 layers. We need to add a layer for shadows, and we need to add a layer for fills. The fills pretty obviously should be below the lines, and generally I like to keep the sketch on top, just so that I can always see what I was working with, you know, kind of thing. So there, we're back in draw mode, and we are jamming. So now we can go here, and all we got to do is go to Melchizidek. There he is. So if anybody's wondering about this, the way I did this was I just added a bunch of materials. I won't get into how you add materials, but what I did was I added a material but then deleted the name, like just typed over it so it's nothing, in order to put a blank space. Then I created another material that doesn't have, everything's turned off, and so that demarcates, if you will, puts a barrier between each of the different characters. And then I just created materials for each of the characters. So honestly, this grease pencil object should actually be baked into my startup file, so that when I start a new grease pencil, well, when I start a new Blender file to do a scene, all of these colors are automatically added. That would definitely be a step in the right direction. But doing it this way gives me a little benefit as compared to using vertex paint and palettes. This is definitely useful. Okay, if you go into vertex paint mode and you choose the palette, I had palettes for each of the characters. The problem is it's totally destructive. So if there's anything that has to be changed downstream, you're kind of hosed. Not completely, but sort of. Whereas if you just use materials instead of vertex paint palette colors, you know, you can just organize them this way. So all I have to do if I'm working on Vespar, I just scroll to the Vespar region, and all the materials are right there waiting for me. Right? So we go into the fills layer, and then go here, and it becomes pretty straightforward. I'm assuming, yes, we do have gap filling on. So I'm going to scroll my mouse up so that it's effectively at 0, and then scroll my mouse 1 notch down, so that the what do you call it? The gap filling mechanism that, well, this effect that draws these straight lines to sort of close the gaps, I want that to be as small as possible, but I don't want it to be turned off. The only downside to this methodology is I have to click twice each time. Not once. Oh, there's a leak. Okay, so then all I do is roll my mouse down until I can kind of see the blue, and now I know that probably the gaps are going to be closed, and indeed they are. Get it? Simple. Up, another leak. Now this one might be trickier to fill, but we'll try it. Yeah, that's not going to be working. Okay, so when it happens, let's actually retreat here a little bit and change a couple things. First of all, in addition to saving our work, I'm going to go to the lines layer, and let's just go into edit mode, smooth. Let's go ahead and smooth these lines. These lines are pretty crappy, aren't they? They're pretty bad. There's probably where our leak was. This is potentially a leak as well. Obviously, this is pretty sloppy. Okay, so let's go into edit mode. One of the things I like to do, and it's really useful, by the way, is I'll turn on proportional editing. So like instead of using the sculpting tool, I'll turn on proportional editing, and then I'll put on connected only. What that means is the proportional editing tool, well, actually, let's show it this way. If I turn this off, then the proportional editing tool is going to affect everything within its range. If I turn on connected only, then I can literally just click like this and immediately grab something and reposition it. It's a very quick way to correct errors. Just click, and I want to turn the range down here quite a lot, actually. Okay, so those should be closed shapes. Actually, this one here obviously is not. So just click and drag. That's all. Nothing to it. Back into draw mode, and we can turn this way down now. And up. Mistake. I'm in the wrong layer. Cool. Everything's working, friends. Hair. Bands. And the other thing about doing it this way is that, these are all procedural materials. So if the particular lighting or situation on the scene means that all these colors need to be changed a little bit in some way, you can do that. Or there's actually another way to do it, which would be go into your layer and make an adjustment of a tint color. So you say, well, the sun's really shining bright and it's kind of red or yellow or whatever, and you can actually you can make, tweak the entire layer. It's quite useful. Quite useful indeed. All right, back to work. So the shirt trim is this, and the shirt itself is this. Oops, another leak. There we go. And then all we have is that bit right there. Actually, let's redo that one. Just a note, and of course, again, I'm using Blender 2.93, but it is notable. And hey, Mark just seen. Hey, Mark, I have not seen you before, I don't think. So welcome to the live stream, and sorry I didn't notice your comment, for a while. I'm kind of doing a bit of creative problem solving here. So, okay, so now you say, well, wait a minute, Dave. What about all these little gaps? Okay, and the answer is the following. There's two answers to that. Number one, at the actual size that the scene will be, which is roughly this, I do everything at Broadcast HD, so that's 1280 by 720. If you're horrified by that because you think everything's got to be 4K, let me tell you, after releasing 8 feature, well, not 8, I've released 5, 6, 7. I guess I've released 7, but after producing many feature films over the last 15 years and dealing with distributors and platforms and blah blah blah, trust me, Broadcast HD is fine. And you can especially with AI tools. Actually, the way the AI tools are now, you can pretty much up-res very convincingly anyway. So anyway, getting back to the matter at hand, if I want to fill in some of these random gaps, normally the best way to do it is to use some neutral. If I use some neutral color, it would work for everything. But again, backtracking here a little bit, the first answer is this is not going to matter. Literally, I'm not joking. Once you factor in two things, Number one, the image is going to be scaled up a bit, which means there's going to be a little bit of blurring that will blend in all of these little tiny gaps when the thing goes to HD. So there's that. The other thing is, once you put it in front of a background of any kind, any background, the colors in the background are going to bleed through, and the randomness of it, it actually just works, if you can take my word for it. However, if you're more anal, here's what you do. You go, like, grab the band's color, but then click this little guy here. It says Draw Strokes on Back. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Shift so that I am not doing a standard click and fill. I'm doing a drag. So watch what happens here. I just lasso that whole region, but those strokes are drawn on the back. Trust me, this doesn't matter. If it did, I could correct it, obviously. So then you just go through here and say, well, I want to fill in all those gaps. And because Blender's putting all the strokes behind any existing strokes, it just covers up all the little issues. Get it? Okay, so anyway, thanks for saying hello, Mark. Feel free to say more if you're inclined to want to have a conversation. The basic idea here is if you've got any questions or something, just pipe in and ask them, and if I can answer, I'll tell you. So, since you are new, and I assume you're still here, actually, I'll ask this question. Are you still here? If you're here, put something in the notes or in the chat that says you're here, and then I'll proceed with what I was going to say, which is sometimes I kind of fill in the gaps for new people to let them know kind of like what's going on. Because people come here and they say, you know, what are you doing? What is this? And so if you're still here, say so. And again, I mean, especially if you're new and wondering what the heck's going on here. Like, what is this thing I'm working on kind of thing. That's the usual question that comes up. And then I'll do a quick explanation. If you already know the answer to that, then I won't bother. Okay, so anyway, nice little bit of cleanup. Okay, what about the background? Okay, let me think about this for a minute. Do we really want to put the boat in the shot? I'm going to say yes. Golly. Let's do it this way. Let's go to a neutral color or a neutral material, which I already have here in the palette. So I'm going to go to the Vertex Colors material. The reason I'm doing that is I want to switch to Vertex Paint mode, okay, so that I can just start painting and just add whatever colors I want. So this looks like it's going to be a bit problematic. Notice I am once again, I'm sorry, hold on a second. First of all, to see the Vertex colors, you need to be in rendered mode. I think material preview mode works as well. Let's just see. So we need to be in Vertex color mode here. Something I'm actually having a little bit of a brain fart here. There's something I'm forgetting that because I haven't done this in several weeks. There's something I'm forgetting. Hey Ross. Good morning, sir. What are you doing? Mark Justine is not still here, I assume. Otherwise, he would say so. Yeah, you're kidding. Dude, why are you cracking on me, man? Why are you giving me grief? Okay, there's something I'm forgetting here. And I can't remember what it is because I've been in Tahoma mode for a couple weeks. And whenever and plus I abandoned switching to Vertex mode all the time several weeks ago. That was why I have all this. I decided the materials were better. So I don't remember. What am I forgetting here? I have to go in. There's like a magic secret here in Blender that I'm forgetting. Mix factor. That's it. Okay, there it is. It doesn't do you any good to switch to Vertex Paint mode unless you turn up the mix factor. So Ross, if you didn't know that, buddy, Now you do. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, the vertex color material should only be showing a fill, and look at what I did. That's quite foolish. I didn't change the color of the fill. I changed the color of the stroke. I don't think this is still going to be black. I'm pretty sure. Nope. Okay. Okay, so we just learned something new. We've got a color for the fill and we've got a color for the stroke. However, note, we just learned something new. This selection of what the vertex paint operation is supposed to be operating on, either strokes, fills, or both. Actually, let's test this. Let's put it on both. I assume if it's on both, this will show black, and it doesn't. So it appears to me, let's switch it back to stroke and see what happens. Yeah, it's black. Okay, that's weird. Actually, that's kind of weird because I would have thought this is the stroke color. So why, if it's in stroke mode, it's going to show black? So apparently I'm wrong. This is not fill, or this is not stroke fill, or vice versa. This is just two colors. That's all this is. This is two colors to pick from. Weird. But yet, no matter what I do, it's coloring the stroke black. So it thinks this. I don't know how to understand that. So the simple solution is this. Click, click. Just make it this color. Okay, now which one's it going to be? It's still black. Okay, that's very strange. Let's go to film mode. Is it going to be purple or what is that? Fuchsia? It's going to be fuchsia. So if anybody out there kind of knows what the proper way to understand this set of two colors is, chime in, because I'm not really getting it here. So to be safe, what we'll do is we'll do the obvious thing, which is switch to fill mode, because it's definitely that is what we want to do. We're not looking to draw strokes. Now we're going to have a problem here because that needs to be filled to keep it from having a gap. So what's going on, Ross? What's new, buddy? For those who don't know, Nagut 40 is Ross, who is a very accomplished animator from New Zealand. And my friend actually did an interview one time here on the podcast, or not podcast, but live stream with Ross. Okay, so now we can just chime ahead, and I think what I'm going to do. Okay, wait a second. Let me go even darker here for half a sec here. I'm basically drawing on the fly. Okay, the reason I did that is so that I can go a little lighter. Remember, we've got this invoked right now, so I have to basically work in reverse. So now what I'm going to do is add that below it, and then I want an even lighter color. So actually, the way to do it would be to sample this so that now we're matching this color, but now make it just slightly darker. Okay, so because of the way we're set up right now to draw strokes on back, we can just lasso the whole area, and there it just sticks it in. Okay, so now Blender probably, I guess Blender has not added these colors to the palette. This is another thing about using vertex paint mode that does complicate things a bit, is that if you want to get back to these colors quickly, there is not a great way to just sample them. What you can do is sample them now, and what happens is they will get added to the palette. So I go click, 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 and now those colors are all here. So now I can use them if I want to, and indeed I do, because I'm going to go, whoops, I'm going to go into regular paint mode, and let's say this is a lot of what's going to make this work will be covered by the shadow layer. So let's not worry about shadowing. This is only about texture. So this is the lightest material, and we probably don't need to fiddle with it too much, but the mid-range material, which is this one, I want to go to the next darker one in draw mode, Okay, not draw strokes on back. Okay, that seems aggressive to me. Actually strike that. It's a little aggressive, but it actually looks good, so let's just roll with it. Okay, so this is obviously a fill material, which means if I draw a lasso, it's going to actually create a shape on the screen. So all I'm doing is just drawing a line, but just wiggling the stylus a little tiny bit. And that looks perfect. I mean, as far as I can see, that's like, I mean, maybe I will add a couple here, and then the shadows will interact with them. Wait a minute. Why? That's not right. That is not right. I believe it's using that material. Again, I don't know how I'm supposed to think about this. I know it sounds kind of crazy. But in stroke mode, what if we put it in fill mode? Okay, this is weird. Oh, okay. I'm close to understanding this. So in fill mode, what happens if we do it here? Okay. So the mode means it's not, okay, that's actually pretty useful, maybe. We recently finished another music video. Okay, cool. In June. All right. And meanwhile, I've started another music video for different, get a lot of word of mouth clients. That's super cool. That's super cool, man. Are you, so that's kind of a niche that you sort of stumbled into, is music videos. Definitely super cool. Okay, so since I sort of figured out something that was working, I'm going to go ahead and build on it a bit. One thing I would want to do is kind of put a dark line here. Put this in... Let's put this back in stroke mode. Okay, wait a minute. Let's not. Being in fill mode, all that means is that if you draw something, it's not going to cover up the strokes. That's all it means. It has nothing to do with whether you're doing fills or not. Okay? So what I probably want to do here is grab my charcoal ink, but stay in vertex paint mode, because then what will happen is it's not going to do the lasso thing. It's just going to draw the shapes. Right? However, it does seem to be using this material. Does switching them change anything? No. Oh, I'm sorry. So apparently you do have to switch to stroke mode. There it is. Okay, so I still don't get it, friends, but it appears to me the color on the left seems to take precedence over the color on the right. I guess I need to just go back and read the docs. So I just want a color that's a little darker so that I can do this. I just want to put some texture on the ribs of the boat. That's all. All of that just for that. But that's okay. This'll brighten up a bit once we get shadows in there. All right, so let's do that. Just because I'm feeling like, why not? So let's go to the shadow layer. Now I don't have the masking set up, so let's do it. Go to the masks, and in Blender earlier versions like 2.81, the masking is handled by ordering of the layers. It is once we got to Blender 2.83 that changed, and this is more powerful and flexible by a long shot, but it's also less simple. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to mask it to the fills. That means that the shadows will only appear over the fills. Yeah, I stumbled into that niche. If I could get together and market myself, I'd like to do some adult music animation for a change. What would the music be? Like what do you mean by adult? I mean, like you're talking like soft porn kind of thing? No judgment, by the way. If that's what you're talking about, that's perfectly fine. I mean, that's just one thing one might want to do, with animation. But I am curious what you mean by adult music animation. Okay, so shadows filled should be, okay, we want to be not in vertex paint mode anymore. Watch the magic, friends. Okay, and now you'll notice, by the way, this material is fully opaque. So the layer, typically I'm looking at around 13-14%, something like that. In this case, the sun is bright, so I'm going to 0.3. It's a little more than normal, but that's all right. Do what works. Okay, so notice where there's no fills, the shadow doesn't cover anything. That's what masking does for you. It's quite useful. Okay, and so this probably should be like that. We'll just kind of bury his hand a bit in shadow, and then we definitely want a little bit of shadow action going on here underneath the sort of like lip of the boat. What time is it? 3:11. Yeah, it's getting it. I'm not going to be going too much longer here. But that looks good. Okay, but we're not done, are we? We need to get Mel's shadows. And again, the reason I'm doing it this way is that if we want to animate Melchizedek, like the way we do in Tahoma, like with the plastic tool and stuff, all we got to do, first of all, is turn off unlock all. I mean, turn off, let me say that again. By default, auto lock the inactive layers is normally on. Right now, I think the reason it's not on is because of all the importing, you know, cutting it from one blend grease pencil object to another and all that. All that stuff that I did kind of changed the setup here. So anyway, what I'm getting at is this is quite powerful because now with all these layers active and not locked or anything, I can go into edit mode, literally grab whatever I want. I'm going to say connected only. I'm going to leave this as connected because I suspect that what I'm about to do will affect the neck because I've actually grabbed some of the vertices that are in the neck, but it won't affect his shoulders or anything like that. So what I would want to do in this scenario, I'm trying to emulate what you do in Tahoma with the plastic tool. Basically the whole, go back here, this whole idea. You know, you set up bones and, you know, do your thing. Blah, 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 blah. You know, yada, 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 yada. Okay. And the way you would do it here, assuming it works, is I'm setting the center point here. I'm going to hit the period key here and switch from median point. Median point would mean everything revolves around, it's going to draw a box around everything that's selected, identify the center, and everything will rotate around the center. If we switch this to 3D cursor, then we can put the 3D cursor wherever we want. And then when we rotate, see what it does? Okay, so now you can see there's a little bit of a flaw to it, but we can correct for that. Here's how. All we would have to do in this scenario is hit Shift and just grab, well, actually what we want to do is hit Alt and ungrab. Is it Alt? Maybe it's Shift. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's Shift. Okay. Alt? No. Shift? Control? No. Sorry. We're going to stop everything now, and I'm going to figure this out once and for all. Okay. I want to deselect. I thought that Alt lasso would do it. So what is it? Alt Control? No. Alt Shift? No. Okay. This can't be right. I mean, this is beyond the pale. There's no way that Blender does not have a... it's the right mouse. I'll bet you it's the right mouse. So I'm going to hit Shift and right. Okay, and when I hit... Okay, so to be honest, little diversion here. To be honest, what just happened is actually a really good thing. You know why? I did not know until just now, how the heck do I reposition the pivot point without having to constantly come up here and click, click, click? So I need to make a mental note of this. It's shift. Nope, what was it? Now I can't reproduce it. I can't reproduce it now. There it is. So it is shift right click. Shift right click. Shift right click. Okay. So now this is really going to give me the willies because this is so out of sync with what I expect from Blender. Meaning, the idea that I can make a selection like this, but I can't selectively unselect some of them is whacked. There's no way there's not a way to do that. No way. Not in Blender. I just can't freaking figure out what it is. If I hit shift, it grabs more like that. If I hit control, it's control. Okay, I didn't know that. There it is. Okay, now we know. That would select that. I didn't hit shift. So what you want to do is if you want to grab more, hit shift. If you want to take away from, hit control. Got it. Now we also learned shift right mouse lets us put the pivot point wherever we want. And so now if we hit the rotate, you can see what happens. It looks to me like the range of the proportional editing tool is definitely too small. So all I do is roll a little bit, just roll my mouse, and you can see that it starts to grab those other vertices. So it's not a huge range of motion that's convincing, but you could, right? And the cool thing is you can do this distortion on, you know, the whole character. I mean, all the layers at the same time. Very useful. Okay, let's go back to the lines layer. And actually, we probably should just put in, let's just do it right now. Let's do eyes. And as distinct, by the way, from pupils. I'm going to put his pupils on their own layer. What else? Brows. Yes. The brows right now are baked into the lines layer, and they shouldn't be, so I need to correct that. Okay, let's do it now. What we would do is let's hit Alt-A so nothing's selected, and then what I'm going to do is hit OK. So now what it's doing is it's selecting not only the strokes, but it's also selecting whatever's underneath because I'm lassoing it. How do we solve that? What we do is, let me think here. I know how to do this, and I'm drawing a blank again. Hopefully dementia isn't afflicting me early here. Is this music aimed for adults so I can do animation that appeals to adults? At the moment, I'm only working on just style. Just want some more variety. Well, the thing Ross is good at, for those who don't know Ross, is I've really been impressed with is Ross is a real chameleon as an artist. He can adapt his drawing and his animation style to the project at hand, which is quite cool. Okay, so the solution would be this. I'm going to hit the tilde key down here over top of the timeline, which isolates the lines layer. That means it's now impossible for me to select anything but the lines, anything that's in the lines layer. See? So I'm going to grab those. I'm going to hit the L key to select linked, which means that any vertices that are attached to the ones I selected also get selected. Hit the M key, M, and just move those strokes into the brows layer. Now, as you can see, ta-da, I can hit tilde again, which now we haven't isolated the layer anymore. Okay, so that's how you do that. All right. So let's turn on the sketch layer so we can use that as a reference. We'll go to the eyes layer. And let's just keep things simple. It's tempting to like, here's a whites of eyes. Okay, I could do it this way on this one. The whites of eyes material, it's like it's not completely white, but it's close. So I'm going to switch to draw mode here. But instead of leaving this as it is, I'm going to add a stroke to the material and just put it down to close to black, so that when I draw the whites of the eyes, it's actually going to automatically put an outline around it. Okay, now that was cool, except strike that idea. I've just well, I'm sorry. What I could have done is I'm going to not do that. And you know why? Because I actually don't want lines everywhere. So let's hit the I'm going to turn the strength, at least for this, I'm going to turn the strength back on so we can soften this a bit. Okay, then let's turn the strength modulation off, go to the pupils layer, and, well, draw some pupils. Okay, that's it. So now if we turn the sketch layer back off, that's what we get. It's not perfect. Go into edit mode. I'm going to grab this. Oh, stop. Okay, just for the record, 99% of the time when I'm working in Blender, this is on. I've got it set so that whatever layer is currently selected, nothing else can be selected. That's my normal case. So today it's a little bit of an exception. Okay, so what I want to do is I'm going to hit the S key to scale this up, like so. Stop everything, hit the period, go back to median point. You want this to scale around its median point, right? Okay. All right. And so I want to scale this up a little bit, and then I'm going to hit the G key, which is grab and go, to move it. But then I'm going to hit the Shift key so that I can move my stylus a lot, and this is only going to move a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is zoom out so I kind of get some perspective here. Like if I hit the G key, this is how much it moves. If I hit the G key and hit Shift, right, so you can really fine tune it. So I'm just looking for what feels right. Boop, that feels right. Cool beans. What time is it? 3:22. Yeah, I'm gonna have to wrap up here in a minute. Ross, I tell you, here's the thing. This kind of dovetails into what I was talking about a little bit yesterday. I don't think you were here, but what would be interesting, it would have to be structured carefully, but at some point, it could be sooner, could be later, but at some point it would be interesting to work on a project together. And if we're going to work on a project together, the way I would want to do it is I would want to very selectively choose a team, a very small team of people I really, really believe in and trust, and then actually set up a corporation, make everybody a partial owner, you know, there's a certain amount of stock involved, and make it something that everyone's invested in. To me, that would be interesting and fun. It's just one of those things that you have to do very, very carefully so that you don't have a setup where later, first of all, one person's, maybe one person has fairly less labor into the story, but yet they have one or two key contributions that are kind of important, and somebody else is kind of grunt working on it like a lot, and you wind up with these situations where there's a lot of nastiness about who contributed what. This is the danger. I've never bumped into that actual problem, but I've heard of it and seen it. But if I was going to do that, it would be a new property. It would probably be aimed a little bit more toward children, I think, but it wouldn't have to be. Actually, the best idea would be something. It would be like Family Guy or something. You know, it would be something that's an adult animation. It would have to be funny. The writing would have to be good. You know, but something like that that everybody can get on board with, and you know, you can kind of scale the production to a degree. I I know you would. I know you would, and that's why I said it, because I know you would like to do something like that. What I said 3 months ago or something about this particular cartoon is that I just didn't trust. I mean, I'm sad to say that I was right, but I was saying back then, we've got 2 really good quarters in a row. I don't trust that this is something that's going to sustain. It might, but I just don't trust it. And if you look at what it costs, if you look at what it earns, and then you turn around and go, okay, you're going to pay one person a reasonable wage to be involved, the show doesn't support it. It doesn't support it. The only way the money works is if it's just one guy that has discretionary time they can throw at it. So there are people out there, maybe like yourself and maybe like others, where you go, well, you know what? If everybody's got, if everybody can kind of throw maybe 30 minutes a day or maybe 2 hours a day or something at a thing, then, and they can commit to it, then you can begin to start to build a model for how this could work. And I think it would be kind of cool. I don't know that it would be cool. Could be that I'd get involved in something like that and the very next day kind of regret it. Because I do have a habit of doing that. Just because I'm not really kind of the group project kind of guy. I know people who are. And it's a really cool thing. They're very involved with, I forgot to put in a mouth layer, didn't I? As I say, it can work. But I'll throw it out there and say, if the right idea with the right team kind of could come together, then I think it would be something that would be pretty cool to do. And frankly, there's no real compelling reason why it's something I personally should. I don't bring anything particularly great to the table. Okay, let's be honest. I don't. I'm okay at drawing. I'm okay at animating. I'm kind of talented at animating, I guess. Maybe. I have nothing particularly, in regard to connections or, if you, as I have done, if you get involved, like here in Indiana, you get involved with the local, there's sort of a community. No, distribution isn't fickle. No. There's nothing fickle about it. Distributors, generally speaking, by and large, they're pretty motivated people, and they're usually pretty decent people. At this point in history, at least with a feature film, it's typically a 50-50 split. 10 years ago, that wasn't true. 10 years ago, it would have favored the distributor like 70-30 or 60-40. These days, it's just there's too much product that is good enough that it might just be the one that takes off, that they've gotten a little more, let's just say, generous. The problem with it is this. Here's the problem with distribution. And I'm going to say this emphatically. Since you're here, I'm going to say it because I think that if people really want to understand this, this would be one of those moments to pay attention. Okay? The thing about distribution is what we do know for sure with the Chronicles of Melchizedek, this show, we know that like all the money is coming from Amazon Prime. It is not coming from Tubi. It is not coming from YouTube. Go down the list. It's not coming from anything except Amazon Prime. It's like 2 or 3 iterations of the 80-20 rule. All of the revenue is coming from Amazon Prime. Well, wait a second. We've talked about this before. In the old days, when you got on board with a distributor, and especially if you were out in Hollywood and you kind of put a team together to finance something that's more costly than maybe what one person could afford. So you need a team, right? Just for the money side of things, you need a team, let's say. This is the way it always was in the old days, before technology got cheap and democratized it, okay? What that didn't do is increase the amount of talent in the pool. So when technology got democratized, what actually happened was you just had a lot more bad content. But you also had more good content on balance because there's just more people doing it, and so the diamonds in the rough would emerge somewhere. Okay, so the problem with distribution is you as a writer of books looking for a publisher, or you as a creator of cartoons looking for a distributor, what you're looking for is actually a marketer. You're looking for somebody who looks at your project and says, "God, I just love this. I mean, I don't know if it's like the one everybody's going to grab, but I'm looking at it and thinking, I just love your work. I love your work so much. I want to be your distributor because I want to promote this thing because I believe in it." Okay? That story that I just told is 99.9% bullshit. It doesn't happen. Okay, does it happen sometimes? Yes. But basically, it doesn't happen. That's not what these guys do. What these guys do, especially at the level of the marketplace that I'm involved with, it's low-end content, as it were. What they do is they go, well, all of these creators, they're kind of naive. They don't really know how the real world works. They don't really know what their product's worth. They'll go in 50-50 just for the fact that I'm the distributor because I have some magical way to get their show on Amazon Prime. And if you're the newbie, what you don't know is, it takes like an hour to get your show on Amazon Prime. It's nothing. I mean, I have a movie that's in distribution right now that initially was released on Amazon Prime. It didn't really make much. I don't know if it made any money. It did pretty poorly. It does okay. Better now, and how much of that's a function of just time passing versus being handled by a distributor, I don't know, and frankly don't care. But here's the deal. What they do is they go out to guys like you, Ross, you got your show and you think, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if somebody got behind my show? No, that's not what they're doing. What they're doing is they're signing a contract with you. It's a 50-50 split, and then they do all the logistics of getting it up on Amazon Prime and everywhere else. But the thing is, there's platforms like, I think it's Runway. I think it's Runway. Runway does the same thing. Runway, I'll just put in Runway Film Distribution. Okay, I can tell you emphatically from experience that I don't know if Runway is what I'm looking for. Because now what I'm finding on the search is Runway Studios. Okay, Runway Studios is the production entertainment arm of Runway. I thought it was Runway. But anyway, the platform, the whole thing is, it's basically a platform where they do take a small percentage, but it's pretty minuscule. And then they get your show or your movie or whatever it is into all the major platforms, right? So the percentage they're going to take is lower. Okay, now this is a very... it's a pragmatic thing to look at because it makes you think pragmatically. You go, oh, well, wait a second. Are you telling me that what the distributors really do is they gather up a large body of product from inexperienced creators and they throw it all at a brick wall and see what sticks, and they don't lift a finger to promote it? They don't care a whit about your show. It's not like they're enthused about it. It's just like if they don't sign you up, somebody else is gonna. So let's just take your content, and who knows, maybe by some magical coincidence, your thing will be the thing that grabs. Trust me, that is what they do. That's not bad or evil. I'm not criticizing it. It's a good business model. I work with film distributors. However, if you have anything in your head that says the great thing about this is they're going to promote my thing, you're kidding yourself. They will not lift a finger to promote it, ever. All they will do, in the case of my distributor, and again, it's not a criticism, what they do is they do go to all the major film markets, of which there are basically three. There's Cannes, there's the American film market, and what's the other one? I can't remember. But there's three major film markets in the world. They do have representatives go to those film markets every year. They show trailers in a room. They rent a room in the hotel so that people that are buying films for the country of New Zealand, let's say, or the country of Australia or Germany, those representatives from those countries representing companies there go to the film market and they're looking for content to buy. So there is a promotional element there. And where it reflects in your paycheck is when they actually make a sale to Germany or something, and then you get your 50% of whatever the sale was. So they're licensing your content to a company in Germany, and it may be exclusive to Germany. In other words, the deal that the German company's doing might be to I'm gonna license your content, and nobody else in Germany can. I get exclusivity in Germany, and that becomes a negotiable. But you're depending on the distributor to do that negotiation. what does all this come to? Here's what it all boils down to. Bottom line. If you're going to be an independent creator, if I didn't have the momentum of a feature film that has done well, handled by this particular distributor, I probably wouldn't go the distribution route. I'd just put it on Amazon Prime myself. You know why? Because everything that makes it matter is promotion. So the problem we have is not creating a show. The problem we have is not getting distribution. Creating the show just takes time. And creativity. You don't want to create a crappy show. You want to do the best you can. That's not a problem. That's easy. Getting distribution is easy. Distributors want your product. Why? Because they know you're naive and that you'll take a deal because you go, oh my God. This is illustrated best this way. Ask yourself, if I go around to distributors and I want to find somebody that's potentially going to license my product, how many of them are going to offer me money up front just for the privilege of licensing my content? The answer is 0. The only time they're going to do that is if you've already got some mind share and you're making money on your product already, and they are going to try to talk you into the idea that they're going to be able to take it to the next level. At that point, they might consider ponying up some money just because they want to have your product and make sure nobody else gets it. But that doesn't happen until you're already somewhat successful. What does that tell you? What that tells you is everything comes back to promotion. Everything. If you want to be successful, and here's the magic part about it, is why I don't worry about money too much, because I always know I can do sales. I can always make a lot of money doing sales. Sales is easy. It's just a numbers game. Well, that's the reality of it. If you're going to do the show and you have the skills to get out there on social media, get out there on Reddit, get out in all the different places that I personally don't really spend a lot of time. But if you want to go out to all those places, promote your thing, talk about it a lot, do interviews, cross-pollinate on YouTube, blah, blah, blah. If you do all that, you're going to get all the reward when the revenue starts to flow from, let's say, Amazon Prime. Here's the magic about it. If you're good at that, what the hell do you need a distributor for? The answer is you don't. Right now, the distribution community is still riding on the coattails of the mythology from the 1990s that they provide a role that's actually important. It's not true. And by the way, there's an interesting caveat about it that's really interesting to note. When I deliver a product to my distributor, number one, it's a fairly persnickety process to make sure that the deliverables are fully qualified deliverables. They need to be in ProRes format, for example. There's a lot of gotchas that you sort of have to pay attention to, especially with like closed captioning, things like that, where you're going to spend a little money to get closed captioning done or whatever, so that the files that get delivered to the platform are compliant. Here's the thing. If you just do it yourself, Amazon, upload an MP4. It's actually not only a more seamless process with again the caveat that could mean that you're going to upload something that's a little less quality or not as perfect because you're being a little sloppy and you don't realize all the little things that maybe would make it better. I know I'm blabbing here, but the gist is, if I upload something to Amazon Prime myself, it is going to be live and potentially earning audience or gaining audience and earning money within a couple weeks. If I go through the distributor, I don't see it actually land on any of the major platforms for 6 months. That means when I get this episode 3 done, if I get this episode 3 done by the end of May, which is increasingly looking like a joke, so let's just be liberal and say the end of March or the end of June. If I deliver it by the end of the June, it is not actually going to land and even have the potential to start earning until the 1st of next year. That's reality. And that's only because their signal flow within their company, that's just how long it takes. It goes into the pool, and then the quality control checkers kind of have to get to it, and they're wading through 36 other movies or whatever that they have to look over before they, and it just takes time. Whereas if you do it yourself, done. You just upload it and done, because Amazon Prime's not that selective. It could be that they do require ProRes. I'm not sure, but whoop-de-doo. It's easy to convert a movie to ProRes. I do it with FFmpeg all the time. So what does this all amount to? What it amounts to is if you're going to put together a corporation and do a group project deal, you really want one person in the mix who truly loves social media. It's actually probably the most important thing. You need one person in the mix who loves nothing more. And they would be the person I was talking about earlier that you don't get in the distributor. They're the person that looks at the project and goes, God, I just love it. I want nothing more than to spend an hour a day, maybe 2, just posting shit anywhere and everywhere, letting as many people as possible know about this show, setting up interviews, doing them themselves, or maybe having one of us artist types do it, whatever. But you want one person in the mix who's all about that. Preferably, somebody who just likes the entertainment value of your show and really knows nothing about animation or music or voices or any of that. No. They're just a person who loves to be buzzing around on social media. And then that's their task. And by the way, don't underestimate at all how much value those people are bringing to the table, because the truth is they're probably the most important person. Way more important than your show. In other words, a really crappy show promoted assiduously for 6 months is probably going to do better than a better show that's just, you put it up on Amazon and wait for the money to roll in. The first example is probably going to be much, much more profitable. I don't know that that's true, but I strongly suspect it. So that's what you need. You need a couple artists so that you can scale up the pace of production, basically. And then everything else is kind of a gimme. I mean, it's not that hard to write a good script or a funny script. I can normally do that in a week or 2. If it was a half-hour show, you could probably write a good script in a couple weeks, no problem. Faster if you had to, kind of thing, So anyway, that's just to educate you guys. If there's a pool of people out there that look at this thing and go, I'd really like to do that, then this is how it would have to happen. Like, at least for me, it's important with my value system. To me, it's important that you would want to set up a new corporation, which in Indiana it's going to cost like $100 to set up a corporation. You would want to issue shares, but all of this would be conditional upon really carefully gauging the abilities and contributions and projected value that's being brought to the table by each of the individuals involved. Because the problem with stock is once you distribute it, that's it. I can't unmake you an owner of stock in something just because I think you've been doing a crappy job. That's the problem. That's why corporations have a board, so that and there's bylaws, so that when it turns out somebody in the mix is a bad apple, you have a mechanism to remove them. Right? Having said that, that's the kind of the negative side of the story. The positive side of the story is you're creating a very well incentivized situation where everybody that gets involved is very incentivized to do their very best work, because whatever the show does, whatever the financial performance is, they know in advance that they're always going to residually be able to benefit from the thing that they contributed way back when, And that's the beautiful thing about the intellectual property market. My movie that I actually released in 2018 still earns today, 8 years later. Well, 6 years later. 6, 7, something like that. 7 years, I guess that it would be. Yeah, a pool of experts in the group sounds good. Well, yeah, I mean, like I said, to me, I'm a competent writer. I'm a competent music person. I'm a competent... there's nothing about this I can't do. So to me, the only reason to do it would be 2 things. Number 1 is there is a creative synergy that makes the collective effort better than what my individual effort would have been. I'm going to say emphatically, I'm going to tell you the gospel truth. In 30 years being in business, I have never once ever been in any situation where the synergies were a win. Okay? I haven't done a ton of it, but I'm telling you. When I was making films, I had people that I was paying way too much, some of them were dear friends, and the fact is, they never even came close to even beginning to contribute nearly what they were paid. Never. So I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying I've never experienced it. So the other reason to go down that road is not about creative synergy. For me, in practice, creative synergy is mostly a myth. But, you never know. The more important thing is that the person that comes to the table, I'm not looking for creative synergy. What I'm looking for is somebody that's damn good at what they do, and they're better than me, preferably. Because the reason you're doing it is just to scale. It's a pure matter of scale. You can only do it so freaking fast. And if there's someone else, then maybe you can double that. You probably can't. It's probably more like, half again or whatever. But so that's my perspective on it. I would love it if creative synergy was a thing. I just personally haven't experienced it. What I have found is I can get together with almost anybody. They don't even have to be a movie buff or anything. I can get together with any other human being, and just or an AI, by the way, or an AI. I've done it. Episode 4 of Salt and Light is in fact co-plotted with an AI. And the only reason it works is because they just come up with something a little different than what I would come up with. It's not better. It's just different, and it stimulates my creativity, you see. So that's really what the creative synergy thing is. No, that's not what's important. What's important is that you're bringing people to the table who are truly competent, who can deliver according to a schedule and an expectation, which should be modest. You don't want to ask too much of people. But then they deliver. End of story. Either they do or they don't. And if they do, so both in terms of pace and in terms of quality, then that's a person you want on your team, because they just, they're doing more than I could do myself. That's all. Right? I mean, I think that's the situation. I think that is the state of affairs under which you would want to consider doing something like this. So anyway, and I think you need probably 2 artists. Honestly, the whole thing probably requires 3 people. 2 artists and 1 person who just loves social media and marketing. That would be probably a good team. And it's small enough. It's 3 people, which means you can always have a majority vote of 2. So that's good. But anyway, all right, I got to get out of here. It's been cool. I hope it's been helpful. What I've accomplished in Blender today has actually been really good. Learned a few new things, and I like what I'm seeing. So with that, as I always say, there will be more later. Let's keep the conversation going, Ross, because you're really on the top of my list of people that I would want to explore this with more. Just because A, you're a good guy, B, you're damn good at what you do. Yada, yada, yada. So anyway, got to go. See you later. I'll be back later.